When two thieves came to my house to steal, they did this to me. Late one quiet evening, I sat alone in my living room, the soft glow of the TV casting shadows across the walls. The day had been ordinary, and I was looking forward to an early night. Little did I know, everything was about to change. The faintest creak of the back door was the first sound that caught my attention. My heart skipped as I froze, ears straining to make sense of the unusual noise. At first, I thought it was just the wind, or perhaps my overactive imagination. But then, I heard a muffled whisper, followed by footsteps. I felt a chill run down my spine as the realization sank in. Someone was inside my house. Two shadows appeared near the doorway, moving with eerie precision. They weren't just there to take. Their intentions felt far more sinister. Clutching a blanket for comfort, I sat paralyzed, unable to decide whether to confront them or stay hidden. Panic mixed with adrenaline as I prayed they wouldn't notice me. But then, one of them turned and locked eyes with me. In that moment, my instincts screamed to run, but my body betrayed me. The second man stepped closer, his demeanor colder than the first. My mind raced with 1,000 questions. What did they want? How far were they willing to go? The answers would come soon, but not in the way I expected. What happened next shook me to my core and changed how I viewed my own safety forever. I couldn't know then that this terrifying encounter would force me to face unimaginable choices. It wasn't just about the things they took, it was about what they left behind. As the events unfolded, I realized this story wasn't just about survival. It was about resilience, betrayal, and a haunting truth I never anticipated. As I sat frozen in the dimly lit room, my mind flashed back to the events of the past few days. Nothing had seemed out of the ordinary. No strange cars parked on the street, no unfamiliar faces lingering in the neighborhood. Yet here they were, two strangers invading my home. The taller man gestured toward the hallway, his eyes scanning the room as if cataloging every piece of furniture, every personal item. His partner, slightly younger and more jittery, held a flashlight, its beam darting across the walls and floor like a predator searching for prey. I tried to recall if I had locked all the doors and windows. The memory felt like a blur, the details slipping through my grasp as panic clouded my thoughts. My house had always been my sanctuary, a place where I felt safe and protected. But in that moment, it felt fragile, vulnerable, like the thin lock on the door was all that had separated me from this nightmare. The two men began to speak in hushed tones, their words too faint for me to understand. I strained to catch fragments of their conversation, my curiosity battling with my fear. Were they looking for money? Jewelry? Something more? One of them stepped toward the bookshelf, running his gloved hand over the spines of my favorite novels, as though mocking the life I had built for myself. I thought of my family, the people who meant everything to me. What if they had been here? The idea of anyone else being in danger because of these intruders was unbearable. My thoughts were interrupted when the taller man turned sharply, his piercing gaze fixing on me. He said something to his partner, who nodded before taking a step closer to where I sat. My heart pounded so loudly I thought they might hear it. The younger one knelt down, his face now visible in the dim light. "We're not here to hurt you," he said, though his words felt anything but reassuring. His tone carried an edge, a darkness that made my stomach churn. The taller man remained silent, his presence looming like a storm on the horizon. My breath hitched as they moved closer, and I realized I was about to find out exactly what they wanted, and what they were willing to do to get it. The younger thief's words lingered in the air, hollow and unconvincing. My mind raced as I tried to make sense of the situation. If they weren't here to hurt me, then what was their plan? I didn't dare ask, afraid that drawing attention to myself might tip the balance. Instead, I stayed as still as I could, every fiber of my being focused on finding an escape. The taller man rifled through the drawers in my living room, pulling out papers, keys, and small trinkets. His movements were methodical, almost practiced, as if he'd done this many times before. The younger man, however, seemed less composed. He glanced nervously toward the window every few seconds, the beam of his flashlight shaking slightly as he examined the room. I noticed his hands were trembling. Was he new to this? Could that nervous energy be a weakness I could exploit? Yet, his unpredictability was just as dangerous. I had no idea what he was capable of if he felt cornered.
As they moved deeper into the house, the silence became unbearable. Every creak of the floorboards, every whisper between them felt amplified. The taller man picked up a photo frame from the mantel, holding it up for the other to see. "Is this her family?" he asked, his voice low but cold. The younger one barely glanced at it before nodding, his jaw tight. My heart sank. The image of me smiling with my family in that photo felt like a mockery of the moment. How could something so innocent now feel like a threat? They began discussing something in hushed tones, and I could only catch fragments. Safe, hidden, time running out. Their conversation hinted at a bigger agenda, something more than just a random robbery. What were they really after? And why my house? The questions swirled in my mind, each one more unsettling than the last. Suddenly, the younger man turned to me again, his eyes locking with mine. "Where do you keep the keys?" he demanded, his voice shaking slightly but laced with urgency. I hesitated, my mind torn between compliance and resistance. Giving them access could mean losing everything valuable to me, but refusing might provoke them further. The taller man stepped closer, his patience visibly wearing thin. I could feel the weight of their gaze, the tension in the room coiling tighter with every second. They were waiting for my answer, but so was I, unsure of how much longer I could hold my ground without something breaking. The room felt like it was closing in on me, the air thick with unspoken threats. My mind was screaming for a way out, but I couldn't think clearly with the two intruders looming over me. The younger thief's eyes darted to the clock on the wall, and I realized they were working against time. But why? What was the rush? The taller one, now visibly agitated, stepped forward and grabbed my wrist firmly. His grip was cold and unrelenting. "Where are the keys?" he growled, his tone leaving no room for negotiation. I swallowed hard, my thoughts racing. I didn't want to lead them to anything valuable, but the fear of what they might do if I resisted kept me frozen. Instead of answering directly, I tried to buy time. "Keys to what? I don't understand what you're asking." My voice wavered, but I forced myself to maintain eye contact, hoping to appear less vulnerable. The taller man wasn't fooled. "Don't play games," he snapped. "We know there's a safe. Tell us where it is, or—" He let the threat hang in the air, his grip tightening just enough to send a shiver down my spine. The younger one, still pacing nervously, interrupted. "We don't have time for this. What if someone heard something? We should have been out of here by now." His words were frantic, but they gave me a sliver of hope. Their nerves could work in my favor if I played my cards right. I tried to keep my breathing steady as I responded. "There's no safe, you're wasting your time." The lie tasted bitter, but I hoped it would shake their confidence. Instead, the taller man's expression darkened. "If you don't want to talk, fine," he said coldly. Then he glanced at his partner. "Check upstairs. Maybe she's hiding something there." My stomach dropped. The thought of them tearing through my bedroom, touching my personal belongings, made my skin crawl. But more than that, I knew my phone was up there, my lifeline to call for help. If they found it, any chance of escaping this nightmare would be gone. As the younger man started toward the stairs, I made a split-second decision. "Wait!" I blurted out, my voice louder than I intended. Both men froze, their eyes locking onto me. My heart pounded in my chest as I scrambled to think of something, anything, to divert their attention. The tension in the room was suffocating, and I knew the moment of reckoning was drawing closer. The room fell silent as my desperate outburst hung in the air. Both men turned to face me, their expressions unreadable but tense. I could feel my pulse in my throat as I scrambled to keep their attention. "I'll show you where the safe is," I said quickly, trying to keep my voice steady. "But you need to promise me you won't hurt anyone." The taller man tilted his head, suspicion flickering across his face. "Why the sudden change of heart?" he asked, his tone icy. He wasn't convinced, and his partner had already taken a step toward the staircase. My mind raced as I realized I had to act fast. "There's no point in lying," I said, forcing myself to meet his gaze. "The safe is downstairs. You don't need to waste time searching the house. I just didn't want you to find it." But I trailed off, letting my voice falter just enough to sound believable. "I'll show you. Please, just leave once you have what you came for." The younger thief paused on the stairs, his foot hovering in mid-air. He looked back at his partner, who gave a small nod. "All right," the taller man said. "Take us to it, but if you're lying again, there won't be a next time to explain." I nodded quickly and moved toward the hallway, my mind spinning. I didn't have a safe, but I did know the house well enough to create a distraction. Leading them toward the basement door, I opened it slowly, the creak echoing ominously. "It's down there," I said, pointing to the darkness below, "but the lock is old. It'll take a second to open." The taller man gestured for me to go first. I hesitated, but he wasn't giving me a choice. Stepping carefully down the stairs, I tried to think of a way to buy more time. My hand brushed against the side of the wall until I found the light switch. The flickering bulb cast eerie shadows on the concrete walls, and I could hear the younger thief muttering behind me. "There," I said, pointing to an old storage cabinet in the corner. "The safe is inside that cabinet. I just need to grab the key from the shelf." As I walked toward it, I noticed something odd. The faint sound of shuffling, soft, almost imperceptible, was coming from behind the stack of boxes in the far corner. My stomach clenched. Someone was there. My heart sank as I realized who it had to be. My neighbor, Jake, who often checked in on the house when I wasn't home. He must have come over after hearing the commotion. The taller thief noticed my hesitation and barked, "Hurry up!" His partner was already scanning the room nervously, his hand twitching near his waistband. I reached for the shelf, my mind racing. If Jake made a noise, it would all be over. The thieves would know someone else was here, and everything could spiral out of control. But as I turned back, gripping a random key to stall them, the shuffling stopped. Jake had realized what was at stake. I handed the key to the taller thief, trying to keep my hands from trembling. He grabbed it and marched toward the cabinet, his partner following closely. The two of them began fiddling with the lock, their backs turned to me. This was my chance. I glanced toward the corner where Jake was hidden and subtly gestured toward the door. He nodded, understanding that he needed to get out without drawing attention. As Jake slipped away, my pulse raced. I needed to keep the thieves occupied long enough for him to call the police. The taller man cursed under his breath as the key jammed. "This isn't working," he growled, throwing the key to the ground. He turned to me, his face a mixture of suspicion and frustration. "Is this a game to you?" I took a step back, holding up my hands. "No, I swear it's the right key. It's just old. It jams sometimes. Let me try again." My voice wavered, but I moved toward the cabinet, acting as though I could fix the problem. Every second counted, and I clung to the hope that Jake was already calling for help. Before I could touch the lock, a sudden burst of light and the sound of sirens filled the basement. The thieves froze, their faces pale as they realized they'd been cornered. Heavy footsteps thundered down the stairs, and within moments, the police stormed in, their weapons drawn. The thieves surrendered without a fight, knowing they had no way out. As the officers secured the scene, Jake appeared at the top of the stairs, his face lined with worry. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice shaky. I nodded, relief flooding through me. The nightmare was over. In the days that followed, I couldn't stop replaying the events in my mind. What started as an ordinary evening had turned into a life-altering experience. But through it all, I realized the importance of staying calm under pressure and relying on the support of others. Jake's quick thinking and bravery had saved me, and I couldn't be more grateful. Though the memory of that night lingered, it taught me a valuable lesson about resilience and the unexpected strength that can emerge in moments of crisis. It was a reminder that even in the darkest times, light can find its way through.